The frozen wastelands of Outpost 7 stretched endlessly under two pale moons. Ice crystals hung in the air like frozen stars, and the wind howled through jagged rock formations that jutted from the snow like broken teeth. This was a place where only the strong survived, and even they struggled. The Vakri pack moved through this hellish landscape like silver ghosts. These wolf-like aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick fur that shimmered under the moonlight and eyes that glowed amber in the darkness. They moved as one unit, their breath creating clouds of mist that disappeared into the freezing air. There were 12 of them, all powerful, all deadly, all perfectly adapted to survival in the harshest conditions the galaxy could offer. At the back of the pack, struggling to keep pace, was Rethka. He was smaller than the others, his fur duller, his breathing labored and painful. Every step felt like knives in his chest. His lungs had never worked properly since birth, a genetic defect that marked him as weak in Vakri society. 4 months, he'd pushed himself beyond his limits, trying desperately to prove his worth to the pack. But his body was failing him now. The pack was heading to the trading outpost where they would exchange rare minerals for supplies. It was a 3-day journey through the ice fields, and Rethka knew he wouldn't make it. He'd known for days now but kept silent. To voice weakness was to invite death. His legs buckled. One moment he was walking, the next he was on his knees in the snow, gasping for air that wouldn't come. His vision blurred. His 4-chambered heart hammered irregularly in his chest. The other Vakri stopped and turned to look at him. There was no sympathy in their glowing eyes, only cold calculation. Pack leader Varnak approached slowly. He was massive even for a Vakri, with scars crisscrossing his snout from countless battles. He looked down at Rethka with something that might have been regret, but was more likely disappointment. "Can you continue?" Varnak asked. His voice was deep, rumbling like distant thunder. Rethka tried to stand. His legs shook violently. He managed to get 1 foot under him before collapsing again, wheezing and coughing. Blood flecked his lips. He knew what came next. Every Vakri knew the law of the pack. "No," Rethka managed to whisper. "I cannot." Varnak nodded slowly. "Then your journey ends here, young one. The pack cannot carry the weak. The weak endanger the strong. This is the way it has always been." The other Vakri had already turned away, resuming their march toward the outpost. To them, Rethka had already ceased to exist. In their culture, once you couldn't keep up, you were already dead. Wasting time on sentiment was foolish. Varnak dragged Rethka to a shallow ice cave nearby, sheltered slightly from the wind. It was a small mercy, nothing more. The pack leader looked at him one last time. "Die with honor," Varnak said. Then he was gone, his form disappearing into the swirling snow. Rethka lay in the cave, feeling the cold seeping into his bones. His breath came in short, painful gasps. He didn't blame the pack. This was their way. This was how Vakri had survived for millennia. The strong lived, the weak died, and the species remained powerful. It made sense. It was logical. It was tradition. But that didn't make it hurt any less. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt strange when you were dying. Rethka drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind playing tricks on him. He saw his mother, who had died in combat years ago. He saw the hunts he'd never be strong enough to join. He saw a future that would never come. Then he heard something. A mechanical whirring sound, completely out of place in this frozen wilderness. Rethka's eyes flickered open. Through the haze of snow and fading vision, he saw lights. Bright artificial lights cutting through the darkness. A hoversled came to a stop near the cave entrance. A figure climbed off, small and bulky in a thermal suit. The figure approached with a scanner in hand, the device beeping urgently. "Holy hell," a voice said. "Human. Definitely human. You're still alive. Barely, but still kicking." Rethka tried to focus. Humans were weak creatures, barely worth noticing in Vakri society. They had no fur, no claws, no natural weapons. They were packless scavengers who built machines to compensate for their inadequacies. This one was tiny, probably not even reaching Rethka's shoulder height. The human pulled back their hood, revealing a weathered face with kind eyes. The name badge on the thermal suit read Dr. Brooks Bennett. "Can you understand me?" the human asked, adjusting a translator device on his collar. "Leave me," Rethka managed to rasp out. "I am defective. Wait, this is the way." Brooks knelt beside him, scanner still beeping. "Yeah, your vitals are crashing hard. Lung failure, heart arrhythmia, hypothermia setting in. You'll be dead in an hour, maybe less. Then, let me die. It is proper." Brooks looked at him for a long moment. Then the human did something that made no sense at all. He smiled. "You know what? I didn't become a doctor to let people die because of proper, Brooks said, pulling an emergency medical kit from his pack. I'm going to do something really stupid now and you're going to hate me for it. But trust me, kid. You'll thank me later. No, Rethka protested weakly. The weak must die. Cannot burden the strong. Brooks was already setting up emergency equipment, working with practiced efficiency despite the freezing cold. Here's the thing about us humans. We've got this really annoying habit of helping people even when they tell us not to. Especially when they tell us not to. It's kind of our whole deal. Rethka wanted to argue, but consciousness was slipping away. The last thing he remembered was the human injecting something into his neck, and feeling warmth spread through his frozen body for the first time in hours. Brooks looked at the massive wolf alien, then at his small hover sled, then back at the alien. This is going to be interesting, he muttered, beginning the difficult process of loading a creature twice his size onto a sled designed for equipment transport. The wind howled around them as the human worked, refusing to abandon someone the universe had already decided to discard. The medical bay at Outpost 7 was small, cramped, and never designed to hold a patient as large as Rethka. Brooks had to push 3 examination tables together just to fit the Valkyrie's body, and even then the alien's legs hung off the edge. Medical equipment beeped and hummed throughout the night as Brooks worked, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion but focused with absolute determination. The problem was simple but deadly. Rethka's lungs were failing at a genetic level. The tissue was deteriorating, unable to process oxygen efficiently. In a few more days, maybe a week, the young Valkyrie would have suffocated slowly even if he'd stayed with his pack. They'd probably known this. They'd probably left him behind as an act of mercy, in their own twisted way. Brooks pulled up everything he could find on Valkyrie biology. The data was frustratingly limited. The Valkyrie rarely sought medical help from other species, considering it a sign of weakness. They definitely didn't share their biological secrets with races they considered inferior. But Brooks had treated enough different species during his 15 years in deep space to make educated guesses. He cross-referenced Valkyrie respiratory systems with similar species. Earth wolves, Centaurian predators, even some reptilian races with multi-chambered hearts. The commonalities gave him a framework to work with. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. At 3 a.m, Brooks made his decision. He'd read about an experimental procedure using nanomesh, microscopic machines that could reinforce and repair damaged tissue at the cellular level. It was cutting-edge technology, barely tested on humans, and definitely never tried on Valkyrie biology. The risk of rejection was high. The risk of making things worse was even higher. But doing nothing meant certain death. Brooks' hands were steady as he prepared the injection. Years of working in crisis situations had taught him to push doubt aside when lives were on the line. He administered the nanomesh directly into Rethka's primary lung chamber, then monitored the alien's vitals with hawk-like intensity. For 2 hours nothing happened. Then the monitor started changing. Oxygen levels began climbing slowly. Heart rate stabilized. The nanomesh was working, integrating with Valkyrie tissue in ways Brooks had only hoped were possible. By dawn, Rethka's breathing had eased. By mid-morning, the young Valkyrie's eyes flickered open. The first thing Rethka saw was the human sitting in a chair beside him, head tilted back, snoring softly. Medical equipment surrounded them both. Rethka tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain shot through his chest. But it was different pain than before. Not the stabbing, suffocating agony he'd lived with his entire life. This was healing pain. Surgical pain. Brooks jerked awake at the movement. Hey, easy there. You've got about 1 million tiny machines rebuilding your lungs right now. Sudden movements are not recommended. Rethka stared at him in confusion. His translator took a moment to activate. What did you do? Saved your life, probably. Brooks stood and checked the monitors. Also possibly violated about 7 different medical protocols, but we'll worry about that later. How do you feel? I can breathe. Rethka's voice was filled with wonder. He took a deep breath, then another. No wheezing. No burning. No feeling like he was drowning in air. I can actually breathe. Yeah, the nanomesh is doing its job. Give it a few more days and your lungs should be functioning at near normal capacity. Maybe better than normal if we're lucky. Rethka looked at the small human with something he'd never felt before. His people had no word for it in their language. Gratitude mixed with complete bewilderment. Why would you do this? I am defective. I am worthless to my pack. I am nothing. Brooks sat back down, rubbing his tired eyes. You know what I love about space? Every species thinks they've got the universe figured out. The Valkyrie think strength is everything. The Centaurians think honor is everything. The methane breathers think logic is everything. And then you meet humans and we just refuse to play by anyone's rules. I do not understand. Kid, where I come from, we measure worth differently. Yeah, you've got a genetic defect. So what? Some of the greatest humans who ever lived had defects. We had a scientist who couldn't walk but understood the universe better than anyone. We had leaders who were blind but saw more clearly than those with perfect vision. We don't throw people away because they're not perfect. We figure out how to help them be better. Rethka processed this slowly. It went against everything he'd been taught since birth. My pack would say you are foolish. That resources spent on the weak are wasted. Brooks shrugged. Your pack left you to die in an ice cave. I'm not sure they're the best judges of wisdom. Over the next 3 weeks, Rethka's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. The nanomesh had integrated perfectly with his biology, better than Brooks had dared hope. The young Vakri's lungs grew stronger every day. He could breathe deeply without pain. He could move without exhaustion. For the first time in his life, Rethka felt what it was like to have a body that actually worked. Brooks taught him how to use the medical equipment, showed him basic first aid, explained human concepts of medicine and care. Rethka absorbed everything like a sponge. He helped around the medical bay, learning, growing, becoming something he'd never been allowed to be before. Then came the day the Vakri pack returned. Outpost 7's landing bay was busy with various species conducting trade when Varnok's pack arrived for their scheduled supply run. Brooks was there with Rethka, helping unload medical supplies from a cargo ship. They didn't notice the Vakri at first. Varnok noticed them immediately. The pack leader stopped dead in his tracks, his amber eyes locked on Rethka. The other Vakri froze as well, staring at the impossible. The defective one was alive. Not just alive but healthy, strong. Working alongside the human as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Varnok approached slowly, his massive form drawing attention from everyone in the bay. Other species stepped back, sensing confrontation. Brooks stepped forward, positioning himself between Varnok and Rethka. The size difference was almost comical. Varnok towered over the human by more than 3 feet. This is not possible, Varnok growled. The defective should be dead. Must be dead. Well, he's not, Brooks said calmly. He's recovering nicely actually. Lung function at 85% and climbing. You have interfered with our ways, human. You have corrupted him with your soft weakness. Brooks actually laughed. Corrupted him? I fixed him. There's a difference. Rethka stepped forward, standing tall. His voice was strong now, no wheezing, no gasping. Pack leader Varnok, I have found something here. Something our people do not understand. You have found disgrace. Varnok snarled. You were meant to die with honor. Instead you cling to life with this soft-skinned scavenger. This soft-skinned scavenger did something our entire pack could not do, Rethka said quietly. He saw value where you saw none. He gave me strength where you saw only weakness. The crowd in the landing bay had grown silent, watching the confrontation unfold. Multiple species observed, many with their own complicated feelings about Vakri arrogance. Varnok's lips pulled back, showing impressive fangs. You will return to the pack. You will face correction for this unnatural state. This is not negotiable. No, Rethka said simply. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. In Vakri culture, refusing a pack leader's direct command was unthinkable. The other Vakri in Varnok's group shifted nervously, uncertain how to process this rebellion. Brooks spoke up, his voice carrying across the bay. You know what the difference is between strength and cruelty? Strength protects. Strength builds. Strength lifts others up. What you practice isn't strength, Varnok. It's just fear dressed up as tradition. Varnok turned his burning gaze on Brooks. You dare lecture me, human? Your species is weak. You have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. You build machines because you are inferior. Yeah, we build machines. We also build hospitals. We build schools. We build societies where everyone gets a chance, not just the naturally gifted. And somehow we've survived just fine. Maybe better than fine. The confrontation ended with Varnok declaring Rethka packless, an exile with no home and no honor. The pack leader had expected shame and submission. Instead, Rethka stood taller, looked Varnok in the eyes, and said simply that he chose to stay with Brooks. The Vakri pack left without him, their departure marked by confused murmurs from the diverse crowd that had witnessed everything. That should have been the end of it. One rescued Vakri, one angry pack, one diplomatic incident narrowly avoided. Brooks went back to his normal routine of treating sprained ankles, space flu, and the occasional radiation poisoning. Rethka helped around the medical bay, learning more each day, growing stronger with each passing week. But word travels fast in space. Faster than light, some would joke. Within the vast network of trading posts, mining colonies, and transport ships that connected the galaxy, stories spread like wildfire. And the story of a human doctor who saved a defective Valkyrie became the kind of tale that captivated people across a dozen different species. 3 months after Rethka's rescue, Brooks was finishing up his evening rounds when the bay doors opened. A battered transport ship had just docked, nothing unusual about that. What was unusual was the passenger who stumbled out into the cold night air. She was Valkyrie, female, smaller than average with silver-gray fur. But what caught Brooks's attention immediately was the way she walked. Her left rear leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, clearly a birth defect that had never healed properly. She limped badly, each step obviously painful. Behind her, a small pack of Valkyrie emerged from the shadows near the transport, watching silently. Brooks saw what was about to happen before it did. The female Valkyrie looked back at her pack one last time, something desperate in her eyes. The pack leader, a scarred female, simply turned away. The others followed. Within moments, they had disappeared into the darkness, leaving the limping Valkyrie alone in the freezing night. Rethka had seen it too. He was already moving before Brooks could react, rushing to the abandoned female's side. She collapsed as soon as her pack was out of sight, exhaustion and despair overwhelming her. "Another one," Rethka said quietly as Brooks joined him. "Her name is Kelna. I can smell her pack scent. They are from the Northern Territories." Brooks knelt beside Kelna, medical scanner already in hand. "Same story as yours?" "Yes." She could not keep up. "The twisted leg makes long journeys impossible. They brought her here and left her, probably hoping she would find the same human who helped the defective one." Kelna's eyes flickered open. When she saw Brooks, something like hope flashed across her face. "You are the human? The one who saved Rethka?" "That's me," Brooks said, checking her vitals. "Let's get you inside. That leg looks painful and you're severely dehydrated." "I have no worth," Kelna whispered. "I am broken. Why would you help broken things?" Brooks smiled, that same smile he'd given Rethka months ago. "Because broken things can be fixed. Come on." Kelna was just the beginning. 2 weeks later, another Valkyrie arrived. His name was Horvik, and his eyesight was failing, a degenerative condition that left him nearly blind. His pack had abandoned him at a refueling station 2 systems away, but he'd spent every credit he had to book passage to Outpost 7. Then came Pressa, too small to fight, unable to defend herself in the brutal sparring sessions that Valkyrie used to establish pack hierarchy. Then Marek, whose hearing had been damaged in an accident. Then others, one by one, sometimes in pairs. All of them defective by Valkyrie standards. All of them abandoned. All of them seeking the human doctor who refused to let the weak die. Brooks's small medical bay became crowded. Then overcrowded. He converted a storage facility into a temporary shelter, then another. Within 4 months of Rethka's rescue, Brooks was caring for 23 Valkyrie outcasts. Within 6 months, that number had grown to 47. Lieutenant Patricia Hayes, the outpost commander, called Brooks to her office on a cold morning. She was a career military officer, practical and by the book, with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many combat zones. "Brooks, we need to talk about your collection," she said, gesturing to a data pad showing the growing population of Valkyrie at the outpost. "They're not a collection, Patricia. They're patients. They're a diplomatic nightmare. I've got 3 formal complaints from the Valkyrie Confederacy demanding we stop harboring their rejects. They're calling it interference with their cultural practices." Brooks leaned back in his chair. "And what do you call leaving sentient beings to die in the cold?" "I call it their business, not ours." Patricia sighed. "Look, I'm not heartless. What you're doing is admirable. But we're a small outpost with limited resources. You're now feeding and housing nearly 50 large carnivores who eat more in a day than most species eat in a week. The costs are adding up. So what are you saying? That I should turn them away? Let them die? I'm saying we need a solution that doesn't bankrupt us or start an interstellar incident." Brooks thought for a moment. "What if they earn their keep? They're not helpless. They're strong, smart, and once I treat their conditions, they're fully capable of working." "Doing what exactly?" "Whatever needs doing. Security, maintenance, cargo handling, emergency response." "Patricia, you've seen Rethka. He's been helping in the medical bay, but he's also got incredible strength and enhanced senses. They all do. These aren't charity cases. They're an untapped resource." Patricia looked skeptical. You want me to put rejected Vakri on the station payroll? I want you to give them a chance to prove their worth. Isn't that what humans are supposed to be good at? Seeing potential where others see waste. She studied him for a long moment. You really believe they can contribute? I know they can. Give me 3 months to prove it. Patricia agreed reluctantly. Brooks immediately began organizing his growing group of outcasts. He taught them human emergency medicine, first aid, and rescue procedures. Rethka helped translate concepts and training methods. The Vakri learned quickly, their natural intelligence unimpaired by their physical defects. But Brooks didn't just teach them skills. He taught them something far more radical, the idea that they had value beyond their physical perfection. That their lives mattered. That being different wasn't the same as being worthless. 2 months into their training, Outpost 7 faced a crisis. A coolant line ruptured in the lower levels, flooding 3 sections with toxic gas. The automated systems failed. Human technicians couldn't reach the affected areas without proper gear, which would take precious minutes to deploy. People were trapped and every second counted. Rethka didn't wait for orders. He organized the Vakri immediately. Their enhanced sense of smell could detect survivors through the gas. Their strength could move debris that would take humans hours to clear. Their resistance to cold meant they could operate in the compromised sections longer than any other species on the station. They moved like a coordinated unit, each one covering for the other's weaknesses. Horvik, despite his failing eyesight, could hear heartbeats through walls. Kelna's twisted leg didn't matter when she was using her powerful upper body to drag unconscious workers to safety. Pressa's small size meant she could squeeze through collapsed doorways to reach trapped people. Within an hour, every single person in the affected areas had been evacuated. 43 lives saved, not one casualty. The Vakri outcast had accomplished what station security hadn't even attempted yet. Patricia watched the rescue operation from the command center, her expression unreadable. When it was over and the Vakri were being checked for injuries in Brooks's medical bay, she found the doctor tending to minor chemical burns on Rethka's paws. Okay, she said simply. You were right. They're officially part of station operations now. Full pay, full benefits, full crew status. Brooks grinned. Told you. Don't get cocky. We've still got a major problem. The Vakri Confederacy is not going to be happy about this. We've just legitimized everything they consider wrong with their defectives. Good, Rethka said, his voice clear and strong. Let them be unhappy. We are done being ashamed. Word of the rescue spread even faster than the original story. Suddenly the rejected Vakri weren't just survivors. They were heroes. They had proven themselves not despite their defects, but by using their unique strengths in ways traditional packs never considered. More outcasts began arriving. The stream became a flood. And in the traditional Vakri territories, pack leaders watched with growing alarm as their discarded members thrived under human guidance, doing things that should have been impossible for defective specimens. The Vakri Confederacy's patience finally ran out. For nearly a year, they'd watched their rejected members flock to Outpost 7. For a year, they'd seen these defectives thrive, work, and even gain respect from other species. It was an insult to everything their culture stood for. It was corruption spreading like a disease. And worst of all, it was being led by a single human who refused to understand his place in the natural order. The message came through official diplomatic channels. 3 traditional Vakri packs would arrive at Outpost 7 to retrieve their wayward members and address the situation with Dr. Brooks Bennett. The language was formal and polite, but the threat was clear. This was not a request. Patricia called an emergency meeting in the command center. Brooks stood beside Rethka, while the other outcast Vakri gathered in the larger observation area. Through the windows they could see 3 massive Vakri transport ships approaching the station, each one carrying a full pack of warriors. We could refuse them docking permission, Patricia suggested, though her tone indicated she knew it wouldn't work. That would only delay the inevitable, Brooks said. Besides, running isn't really our style. Rethka stepped forward. Pack leader Varnak is leading them. I can see his ship's markings. He has not forgotten his humiliation. He will want blood for what happened. Then we give him a conversation instead, Brooks replied. Violence should be the last option, not the first. The Vakri ships docked with heavy metallic thuds that echoed through the station. Varnak emerged first, even larger than Brooks remembered, flanked by 24 warriors from the most prestigious packs in Vakri space. They moved with perfect synchronization, a show of strength meant to intimidate. Behind them came more warriors, until nearly 70 traditional Vakri filled the landing bay. The outcast Vakri numbered 83 now, but they looked small and uncertain facing the elite warriors of their species. These were not random pack members. These were the strongest, fastest, most perfect specimens the Valkyrie could produce. They wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the bay lights, marked with symbols of honor and conquest. Brooks walked forward to meet them, Rethka at his side. Patricia and a security team followed at a distance, ready but not aggressive. The size difference was almost absurd. Brooks barely reached Varnok's chest, and the pack leader had to look down at a steep angle to meet the human's eyes. "Dr. Bennett," Varnok said, his voice carrying across the bay. "You have been given many chances to cease your interference. You have ignored all warnings. This ends today." "What ends exactly?" Brooks asked calmly. "Me helping people who need help? Me giving medical care to those who seek it? Be specific." "You corrupt our defectives. You fill their heads with lies about their worth. You make them believe they can be something they are not." Varnok gestured to the outcast Valkyrie. "These failures belong with their packs, accepting their fate with dignity. Instead, they disgrace themselves following a weak human who knows nothing of strength." Brooks crossed his arms. "I know enough about strength to recognize it comes in different forms. Your people are strong physically, no question. But you're weak in ways you don't even recognize." Murmurs rippled through the traditional Valkyrie. No one spoke to a pack leader this way, especially not a human. "You dare call us weak?" Varnok's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. "Yeah, I do. You're so terrified of imperfection that you throw away anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of value. That's not strength, Varnok. That's fear. You're afraid that if you acknowledge worth beyond physical perfection, your entire society falls apart." Varnok's lips pulled back, showing fangs designed to tear through armor and flesh. "You will return our pack members to us. No. Or we will take them by force." "They're not your pack members anymore," Rethka said, his voice steady. "We are packless by your own declaration. We belong here now." "You belong in the ice where we left you, defective," one of the warriors spat. That's when the situation deteriorated. 3 warriors moved forward, clearly intending to grab Rethka and drag him back to the ships. But the outcast Valkyrie, trained by Brooks in human tactics of coordination and teamwork, moved as one. They formed a defensive line, not attacking but clearly ready to protect their own. The traditional Valkyrie warriors laughed. These defectives wanted to fight? Would be a massacre. They outnumbered them, were better trained, and most importantly were physically superior in every way. What happened next shocked everyone. The station's diverse security force stepped forward. Humans, Centaurians, methane breathers, and a dozen other species formed up alongside the outcast Valkyrie. They weren't all warriors. Some were engineers, traders, medical staff. But they'd all witnessed what the outcasts had accomplished. They'd seen the rescue during the coolant leak. They'd worked alongside these rejected Valkyrie and knew their worth. Patricia's voice boomed across the bay through the intercom. "Any violence initiated in this station will be met with immediate defensive action. I have weapons systems locked on all ships. Stand down." Varnok looked around, genuinely surprised. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. The defectives should have cowered. Other species should have stayed out of Valkyrie business. Instead, he faced unified opposition from dozens of different peoples who decided these outcasts were worth defending. "You would all risk war over these failures?" Varnok demanded. "We're risking nothing," Brooks said. "You're the ones making threats. You came here with warriors ready for violence. We're just standing our ground." Big difference. Tension filled the bay like a physical force. Everyone knew they were seconds away from bloodshed. Then Rethka stepped forward, past the defensive line, walking directly toward Varnok. Brooks reached for him but missed. "Pack leader Varnok," Rethka said loudly. "I invoke Corvash. Trial by combat. Your right to reclaim us versus my right to remain free." The bay went silent. Even Varnok looked surprised. Corvash was ancient, a ritual older than recorded Valkyrie history. It was the ultimate dispute resolution, used when words failed and both sides believed they were right. One-on-one combat between representatives, with the winner's position accepted by all. Even packless Valkyrie could invoke it, though few ever dared. "You challenge me?" Varnok's surprise turned to dark amusement. "You, who could not even survive a simple march. You whose lungs failed with every breath. You wish to face me in combat?" "Yes," Rethka said simply. Brooks grabbed Rethka's shoulder. "What are you doing? You can't fight him. He's twice your size and has decades of combat experience." "I am not the weak pup you found in the ice cave," Rethka said quietly. "You made me stronger than I ever was. Strong enough for this." Trust me, Brooks. Trust what you've built. Varnock laughed, a harsh barking sound. Very well, defective. I accept your Corvash. When I defeat you, all defectives return with us. Your human will be barred from ever treating Vakri again. This is the price of your foolish pride. And when I win, Rethka said, we remain free. All of us. You acknowledge our right to choose our own path, and the Confederacy leaves us alone. Agreed. Varnock's confidence was absolute. This would be over in minutes. They cleared a space in the center of the bay. No weapons were allowed in Corvash, only natural claws and fangs and strength. The crowd formed a circle, hundreds of beings from dozens of species watching what would determine the fate of every rejected Vakri in the station. Brooks pulled Rethka aside one last time. You sure about this? No, Rethka admitted. But I am sure about what you taught me. That strength is not just about size and claws. That intelligence, strategy, and determination matter. That the human way of fighting uses the mind as much as the body. Kid, I taught you emergency medicine and how to work as a team. I didn't teach you how to fight a Vakri war leader. Rethka smiled, that very human expression he'd learned over the past year. You taught me something better. You taught me I was worth fighting for. The rest I figured out myself. The circle was drawn. Ancient tradition stated it must be 50 paces across, marked with the blood of both combatants. Rethka and Varnock each cut their palms and walked the perimeter, leaving crimson drops in the metal floor. Once inside, there could be no interference, no mercy, no surrender. The fight ended when one could no longer stand or when death claimed them. Brooks watched from the edge, his heart hammering. He'd seen Rethka grow stronger over the past year, seen him train and develop. But this was different. This was Varnock, a warrior who'd fought in hundreds of battles, who'd killed enemies twice his size, who represented everything the Vakri held as the pinnacle of their species. The two Vakri faced each other across the circle. The size difference was stark. Varnock stood nearly 9 feet tall, his body covered in scars from countless victories. Rethka was smaller, leaner, his body unmarked by battle. To every traditional Vakri watching, the outcome was certain. The defective would die, and this foolish experiment with human weakness would end. Varnock attacked first, a straightforward charge that relied on pure power. It was the traditional Vakri opening move, meant to overwhelm the opponent immediately. His claws extended, reaching for Rethka's throat. Rethka wasn't there. He'd moved sideways at the last possible second, using speed instead of trying to match strength. Varnock's momentum carried him forward, and Rethka raked his claws across the pack leader's exposed flank as he passed. First blood to the defective. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Traditional Vakri didn't dodge. They met force with force, strength with strength. What Rethka had just done was considered cowardly by their standards. Varnock spun, fury in his amber eyes. You fight like prey, not a predator. I fight to win, Rethka replied. There is a difference. They circled each other now, Varnock more cautious. He lunged again, faster this time, anticipating the dodge. But Rethka dropped low instead, sliding under the attack and using his smaller size to his advantage. He struck at Varnock's legs, trying to slow the bigger warrior down. This was what Brooks had accidentally taught him. Not through combat training but through observation. For a year, Rethka had watched humans work, had seen how they solved problems. Humans didn't win through superior strength. They won through adaptation, through using tools and terrain and intelligence. They won by fighting smarter, not harder. Varnock landed a hit, his claws tearing across Rethka's shoulder. Pain exploded through the younger Vakri, but the nanomesh-reinforced tissue held better than natural flesh would have. Brooks's medical intervention had made Rethka's body more resilient in ways no one had anticipated. The fight continued for minutes that felt like hours. Varnock was stronger, more experienced, more skilled in traditional combat. But Rethka was faster, more agile, and fought with a style that had never existed in Vakri culture before. He used the environment, bouncing off walls to change direction. He targeted specific areas systematically, wearing down his opponent rather than seeking a single killing blow. It was exhausting. Both combatants were bleeding from multiple wounds. Varnock's confidence had shifted to frustration, then to something like concern. The defective should have fallen by now. Should have been overwhelmed. Instead, he kept adapting, kept finding new angles of attack, kept surviving. Brooks watched Rethka move and saw a year of lessons playing out. The precision came from medical training, learning where bodies were vulnerable. The endurance came from months of physical therapy, building strength that genetics had denied him. The strategy came from endless conversations about human history, about how smaller forces defeated larger ones through intelligence and adaptation. Varnock charged again, committing fully to a devastating strike. Rethka didn't dodge this time. He stepped into the attack, accepting a glancing blow to deliver his own strike directly to Varnock's throat. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to make breathing difficult. Deep enough to matter. The pack leader staggered back, one paw at his throat. Blood seeped between his fingers. His breathing came in harsh gasps, each one clearly painful. He looked at Rethka with something new in his eyes. Not respect, not yet. But recognition. The defective had landed a critical hit. "You fight without honor?" Varnock rasped. "I fight to protect my pack," Rethka replied. "That is the highest honor I know." They clashed again, but the fight's momentum had shifted. Varnock was slowing, his wounds accumulating, his legendary endurance finally meeting its limit. Rethka pressed the advantage, not with overwhelming force but with relentless pressure. A cut here, a strike there, each one calculated to wear down his opponent. Finally, Varnock stumbled. His legs gave out and he crashed to his knees. He tried to rise, muscles trembling with effort, but his body refused. Blood loss and exhaustion had claimed him. He remained conscious, aware, but unable to continue fighting. Rethka stood over him, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen wounds. He raised his claws for the killing strike that tradition demanded. And stopped. "I could kill you," Rethka said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Tradition says I should. That victory requires death. But I was taught by a human that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to kill is easy. The strength to spare takes courage." He lowered his claws. "I claim victory under Corvash. I claim freedom for all defectives. I claim the right to form a new pack built on different principles. And I spare your life, Varnock, because that is what my human taught me. That mercy is not weakness. That value is not determined by perfection. That a pack is only as strong as its compassion." The silence in the bay was absolute. No one had ever seen anything like this in Vakri history. A defective had defeated a pack leader. A supposed weakling had shown mercy to his defeated opponent. Everything they believed about strength and weakness had just been challenged by a single combat. Varnock looked up at Rethka, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, deliberately he bowed his head. The traditional Vakri gesture of acknowledgement. Not submission but recognition of a valid claim. "The Corvash is complete," Varnock said, his voice rough. "Your claim is recognized. Take your defectives. Form your pack. But know this, young one. What you have started here will not end peacefully. The Confederacy will not accept this easily." "Then the Confederacy will have to adapt," Rethka replied. "Like I did." The traditional Vakri warriors helped their pack leader to his feet and returned to their ships without another word. They'd come expecting an easy reclamation of their defectives. They left having witnessed the impossible. Brooks rushed to Rethka as soon as the circle was broken, medical scanner already out. "You absolute idiot. You brilliant, terrifying idiot. Let me see those wounds." "I won," Rethka said, swaying slightly from blood loss and exhaustion. "You almost died," Brooks countered, but his hands were gentle as he began treating the injuries. "But I did not. Because you made me stronger. Not just my body but my mind. My spirit. You showed me I was worth saving. Worth fighting for. That lesson was worth the risk." Patricia approached with a data pad. "I'm getting transmissions from across the sector. Word of this fight is spreading fast. We've got 17 more Vakri requesting asylum at the station. And I'm seeing reports of defectives seeking human help at other outposts too. Rethka, what you just did might have changed your entire species." 5 years passed like a breath and an eternity. Outpost 7 transformed completely. The small medical bay that Brooks had started with had expanded into a full medical academy. He now trained doctors from multiple species in techniques that prioritized compassion alongside competence. His students learned that healing wasn't just about fixing bodies, but about seeing value in every life. The outcast Vakri, now called the Sentinel Pack, numbered over 200. They'd become the station's primary security and rescue force, respected across the sector for their skill and dedication. They still bore their defects, wore them almost as badges of honor now. Kelna with her twisted leg commanded the rapid response team. Horvik, despite his failing vision, led intelligence operations using his enhanced hearing. Pressa trained new recruits, her small size an advantage in confined space operations. They'd revolutionized Vakri culture from the outside in. Young Vakri with defects now fled to human space openly, knowing they'd find sanctuary and purpose. Traditional packs faced increasing pressure from younger generations questioning ancient traditions. Some progressive packs had even started adopting human medical techniques, treating defects instead of abandoning their members. Brooks stood in the academy's observation deck, watching a class in session below. Rethka was teaching a mixed group of students, humans and Vakri and others, about emergency field medicine. The young Vakri who'd once been left to die in an ice cave now commanded absolute attention from his pupils. "You know what the hardest part of being a medic is?" Rethka was saying. "It's not the technical skills. It's not the long hours or the dangerous situations. It's maintaining faith that every life has value, even when society tells you otherwise. My pack left me to die because they believed I had no worth. A human doctor refused to accept that judgment. He saw value where my own people saw none.